Richard, such an honor to sit here and chat with you about a topic that is near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yeah.
Kind of a taboo topic, a topic that people need to talk more about, and it's about Asians and caregiving in the Asian community, and really something that no matter what ethnicity you are, touches us all.
That's correct.
Did you ever think that at this time in your life that you would be in a position to be a caregiver for somebody in your family, in this case your dad?
It's not something you think about. It just happens. And if you're equipped and you're ready, that's really the question, to learn about it, share it, and then do something about it, I think is what the question is sometimes. Because we don't expect these things, I think. Some do, and hats off to them because they've looked ahead.
That's a very small percentage, though. I think the majority of people
You're right.
are not prepared, and
No.
it hits them like a ton of bricks. Like in my case with taking care of my father who was dying of cancer. So for you, can you take me back to how this all started?
Well, 4 years ago, we knew that he was slowing down a little. His memory was never good, and his hearing was never good. So it wasn't necessarily like, Dad's got a little hearing issue. He's forgetting things. He's always been that way. When he started to forget like his siblings' names, my aunties and uncles, then we said, there might be something going on. And so that was about 4 years ago when it was determined that there was dementia or Alzheimer's or a mix thereof. And that's when we learned.
And so your father and mother and family live here in San Francisco, but at this time you are an anchor at NBC News,
Right.
MSNBC in New York.
In New York, that's right.
So did your life kind of shift schedule-wise then?
So the first thing we did is we said, okay, get him to a doctor. And so my mother went with him to a neurologist, and he got diagnosed. And then we figured out, okay, at what point will it become more than just funny? Because in the beginning, it's sort of funny, or not like a major heavy issue. Because it's just, Dad forgot, where he had lunch. Fine, right? It's senioritis, right? Senioritis.
When you say the word caregiving to a lot of people, they don't really understand what it is. What does it mean to you now that you're in the thick of it?
I think caregiving means two major things. One is the process of how do you help the person that needs the help? So in my case, my father. And what's the best way to get him that help? And how does that work within the family? Like, how do we work as a team? And I hate to sound all businessy, but how to work as a team to get this done, right?
Yeah.
Like, where does my role fit versus my mother's role versus my brother's role versus my sister's role? And so all of us, and that was the first thing, like we got on a conference call and we talked about it. It was like, okay, so what do we do? Where is he at? What's the next step? The other part in terms of caregiving is also for you as a caregiver, understanding where you're at. And that's tough. Just as the other part was tough. They're both not easy. But the other part of saying, okay, this is really horrible. I don't like this. And do you allow yourself to go there? Because you deny it.
Yep.
That's understandable. And then what is deny? When you deny things, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Some people deny it, they just don't talk about it.
Yep.
They don't engage.
Yep. I've dealt with that a lot.
Yeah. And so that is, I think, for everybody different. It's something I learned along the way.
And that's why I think it's so interesting about you're a storyteller and you're in the story now of your dad's life.
Good stories also have emotion in it.
Yeah.
Good stories understand the emotion in the story. It's not all about it, but it's those layers below it.
Yeah. I mentor a lot of people, and I don't want to say you've been like a mentor or somebody that's older.
Because I'm old, yeah.
A little older than But one of the things that it's hard to teach people is the whole getting in tune with the person's energy. And I think of life as kind of like a big radio station. I'm sure you've heard this many times before, and we're just kind of tuning in. So you're tuning in to the vibration or where this person is at and where they want to open up or where they're at in their story, and just engaging with them in a sense that has, that allows them to open up. Life has changed for you a lot since the beginning of...
Wee little bit.
A lot, I would say, in the last few months. Being somebody that is young, career, so much ahead of you, things are going, great with NBC, MSNBC, but you live in New York and Dad lives here. Well, that has to be challenging.
Yeah, of course it is. the great thing is, and there's a bunch of layers to this. Number one is to be able to be ready for such situations, right? And it's about muscle sets. And you just don't know, like you're walking down the street. You don't know when somebody's going to jump out in front of you. You don't know whether you're going to slip on a banana peel. You don't know when a dog's going to come out and chase you down the street. And can you react properly,
Yes.
right? And I think that, thanks to my dad and my mom, is that they've always sort of equipped me to be open to new ideas, to be curious about them, and to work at it, right? Not in a mechanical way, but be open to those changes and go where your heart takes you and your stomach takes you and your brain takes you, right?
So wise, being in tune with your gut. Talk a little bit about the challenges, and then we'll talk about the honor in later. But tell me a little bit about the challenges of being someone that has a whole career ahead of them but lives bi-coastal. Mom and dad live here in San Francisco. You live in New York.
Right. So that's the first level, which is sort of the equipping of the way I think and my sort of cultural center, my ideological center, the sorts of skill sets and the muscle sets, and I don't mean by muscles, you know what I mean, to be able to, I don't got that, to be able to, to be able to deal with the things. And in my career, I've sort of done a crazy little sort of S thing back and forth, and that's part of that. So this is sort of, oh, thank you. You've given me the ability to actually handle what is, you don't embrace it necessarily. And I think also, the second thing would be, my work.
Yeah.
To answer your question about, what it's been like, completely supportive of this dynamic. The ability to still keep my profession moving at a slower pace, but still moving, and then be able to spend time in California. And I asked them that, and they said, let's think about it. And they said, yes. What network in our world allows you to do that?
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they have been amazing. And the fact that I can still do this, I just have to pinch myself sometimes because I'm here. Yeah. I'm able to be here and talk to you and in my childhood home, being able to do the little things that I can, and I don't do a lot necessarily, and still go back to New York for 2-3 days and work there. Yeah. So that's really an amazing a second part of that ability to live that way. And the third thing I'd say is, personally, hey, you only got one family, right? Yeah. And those three things are what come together in this sort of, you were talking about life force. I'll call it the life force enchilada. And those are the three things I'm throwing in that burrito or enchilada. I like, Mexican
cream,
food.
little guacamole.
Yep. I got 3 big ingredients in that life burrito. So that's the deal.
You were talking a little bit about that you're in your childhood home here in San Francisco.
Yep.
Take me back a little bit and tell me about your parents' kind of immigration here. Let's start there.
My mom was born in China. My dad was born in Chinatown, San Francisco. And my mom's side, they're from LA. My dad's side's from Northern California. In fact, my father did not know that his real last name's not Lui until he was 40. So my real last name's not Lui, it's Wong.
Wong. Okay.
Yeah. Typical paper son story in California where they paid for the name, came here through the Golden Gate when there was no bridge, and landed on Angel Island, waited there, and then had a life ahead of them.
So just because I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to some history, so when the earthquake happened, did all the paperwork kind of get lost and that kind of benefited your family?
Yeah, that's the whole system, isn't it? Yeah. There was the Great Fire and earthquake. Fire destroyed all the papers in City Hall. So they were allowed to claim up to 6 to 8 names. And so all the Asian folk, mostly Chinese, went down there and said, I got 6 to 8 sons. I got John, I got Jed, I got Jane. Mostly guys, actually, is what they did. That's what it's paper sons. There are paper daughters. Yeah. And so my grandpa bought one of those names.
Wow.
Lickety-split. He came over here in I think 1906 or 1909.
Wow.
So he came over here bam. They got a sale on names. And I'm going to come to this country.
Wow, fascinating.
So he came here. And the reason why my grandmother did not tell my father was they were worried that the entire family was going to get deported.
Being Asian American, there are so many layers that makes it difficult to be a caregiver. It's like, don't ask, don't tell. We don't really talk much in my family. Or there's a your parents don't want to tell you if they're ailing some way or somehow to make you worry. There's physical, fiscal,
Yep.
cultural, language barriers,
Yep.
and different challenges like
Yep.
that. So, what are some challenges that you face specifically because you're an Asian American?
Right. I think that, first of all, I'm lucky because my pops is sort of a guy that, he was one that always said, I got a cold, I'm going to the doctor. My brain's getting a little soft, I better go talk to the neurologist.
So very present and aware of his health.
And if you see him and he can't remember your name 4 minutes later, I'm sorry, I have dementia.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Very sort of, when I'm sick and I'm not perfect or I'm not well, I'm going to tell you, I self-identify as that.